promoting dialogue.
Good evening and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio Broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online at wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Senegalese lawmakers debate interpretation of controversial amnesty law while CSOs call for inclusive consultations.
In the Senegalese constitution, they said the respect of human rights and the respect of the right of citizen is the basis of the Senegalese society. Human rights have been violated.
Guinean military leader Doumbouya sets September 21, 2025 as the date for a constitutional referendum. Ghana's President Mahama assents to bills aimed at abolishing e-levy betting tax, among others.
This is the Electronic Transfer Levy Repeal Bill. That's the famous e-levy bill. I'll proceed to sign it. Promises delivered.
And Liberia's National Elections Commission officially declared campaign opened for Nimba County by-election. Details of these stories and more are coming up shortly.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and welcome to our listeners within the sub-region and beyond. Newslink begins right here in Senegal as the opposition on the front for the defense of democracy and the republic protested today at the National Assembly to register their dismay for the interpretation of the controversial amnesty law. This comes as members of the National Assembly are currently debating on the interpretation of the controversial amnesty law in the Parliament section. But already, 20 civil society organizations have urged the National Assembly to engage in more inclusive consultations with key stakeholders before interpreting the law. These CSOs argued that the current amnesty law under consideration does not serve the best interests of the citizens as it fails to deliver justice to victims for the atrocities that occurred between 2021 and 2024. Christopher Aticho has more in this report.
As the deputies prepare to be summoned to a plenary session today to vote on the proposed bill interpreting the controversial amnesty law, 20 civil society organizations in the country have expressed their displeasure at the move, calling for a more inclusive consultation with all stakeholders with the objective of ensuring a fair and transparent justice for victims of the atrocities and human rights violations committed between 2021 and 2024. AU governance expert Ibrahim Khan speaks on behalf of the CSOs.
This amnesty law, unlike the other amnesty law, is an amnesty law that creates a lot of problems. First, by the number of people who were killed during the period of time covered by the amnesty. Senegal has accepted treaties that don't really permit the possibility for a person who has committed torture to be amnestied by the law. But the first amnesty was covering everything. So for us, let's sit down as citizens of this country, discuss the best way, so together with the authorities, we help draft a new bill so that that new bill can be adopted by the parliament.
To avert future atrocities, Ibrahim Khan called for the respect of human rights as enshrined in the Senegalese constitution.
In the Senegalese constitution, they said the respect of human rights and the respect of the right of citizen is the basis of the Senegalese society. Human rights have been violated. If we don't sort out those human rights violations, it will touch on the structure of our own society and then mean that our future is at stake, and that is a big problem.
The current amnesty law in contention marks the 10th time Senegal has granted amnesty since independence. However, the current law passed under the ex-Macky Sall administration has been faced with lots of controversies as experts believe it's not in the best interest of the Senegalese citizens.
Christopher Aticho fight that report. Elsewhere, Guinean military leader Mamadi Doumbouya has set September 21, 2025 as the date for a constitutional referendum. According to a decree read out on state television Tuesday evening, the move serves as a critical step towards returning to constitutional order. Guinea missed a December 31, 2024 deadline that the military authorities had set for a return to a civilian rule. Abdullahi Hassan completes the story.
Guinea missed its December 31, 2024 deadline that military authorities had set for a return to a civilian administration. In July 2024, the junta presented a draft of a new constitution which may allow Doumbouya to participate in the next presidential election. Authorities have said a referendum on the draft constitution will be a precursor to any election and a return to constitutional rule. Guinea's two former ruling parties are currently suspended. The other major opposition party, the Union of Democratic Forces of Guinea (UFDG), has been placed under surveillance. The acceleration of the electoral process was marked this Tuesday, April 1, by the reception of a large batch of electoral kits at Ahmed Sekou Touré International Airport in Conakry by Prime Minister Uriba. The equipment, which includes computers, iris scanners, GPS for geolocation, and other equipment, is aimed at facilitating and updating the electoral register in order to collect digital and biometric data from voters both in Guinea and abroad.
Abdullahi Hassan reporting there. Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama has assented to a series of legislative bills meant to abolish several taxes, including the electronic transfer levy, betting tax, and emission tax. This move aligns with the National Democratic Congress's commitment to alleviating the financial burden on Ghanaians. As a reminder, on March 13, 2025, Finance Minister Dr. Kassel Atofotson presented 8 bills to Parliament targeting to repeal and amend various taxes and levies. These bills included the Electronic Transfer Levy Bill 2025, Emissions Levy Bill 2025, Income Tax Amendment Bill 2025, and the Earmarked Funds Capping and Realignment Bill 2025, among others. Here is what transpired at the presidency today.
This is the Electronic Transfer Levy Repeal Bill. That's the famous e-levy bill. I'll proceed to sign it. Okay, I've just given assent to the repeal of the famous e-levy bill. Now this is the Income Tax Amendment Bill 2025 to remove withholding tax on winnings from lottery, betting, and games of chance. This is the famous betting tax repeal bill. And so I'll assent to it, 2nd April. So betting tax is gone. Now this is the Emissions Tax Repeal Bill. So Emissions Levy Repeal Act 2025, emissions levy is gone. This is the Earmarked Funds Capping and Realignment Bill. This is the bill that caps the GET Fund and National Health Insurance Levy and moves those resources into the Consolidated Fund. We promise that we'll take the capping off, we'll uncap them. And so this bill uncaps the GET Fund and the National Health Insurance Levy. So the Earmarked Funds Capping and Realignment Amendment Bill has been assented to. Promises delivered.
Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama. Meanwhile, President Mahama has ordered a full-scale investigation into claims that 2 suspicious flights allegedly linked to drug trafficking and money laundering landed at Kotoka International Airport. The directive follows concerns raised by Asin South MP Reverend John Natim Fojol, who also serves as the ranking member of Parliament's Defence and Interior Committee. Though in a press conference, Reverend Fajol claimed that the flights, an air ambulance and a private jet were suspected of being used for illicit activities. WADR's Nadia did the reports.
The minority in Ghana's parliament at a press conference on Tuesday, April 1, 2025, raised serious security concerns alleging drug and cash smuggling via private jets, the mysterious disappearance of 12 containers filled with gold and cash, and a private attack on a Ghanaian fishing vessel. Led by Asin South MP, who also serves as the ranking member on the Defence and Interior Committee of Parliament, Reverend Ntim Fojo, the New Patriotic Party side of Parliament cited 2 private aircraft Airmed Flight N823AM and Kavok Air, which reportedly landed at Kotoka International Airport in March, allegedly carrying cocaine and cash.
The Minority Caucus calls on national security to, as a matter of urgency, make public the content of cargo suspected to be cocaine and cash transported into the country by two suspicious flights, which landed on the tarmac of Kotoka International Airport in March 2025 from Gran Canaria, an island of Spain.
The Minority Caucus also demanded answers regarding the alleged pirate attack on the Ghanaian fishing vessel Mengzin 1 on April 27, urging the government to equip the Ghana Navy with offshore patrol vessels to secure the country's territorial waters. Reacting to the allegations of illicit drug activity and money laundering, President Mahama assured that his administration takes such matters seriously and has ordered a full-scale investigation. He directed the Narcotics Control Commission, NACOC, the Police CID, the National Investigations Bureau, NIB, and the National Security Coordinator to work closely with Reverend Ntim Fodjo to probe the claims and take decisive action. Reaffirming his government's zero-tolerance stance on drug trafficking, the president disclosed that the NIB recently intercepted drugs worth $350 million in a major bust. For WADR, Nadi Ditete, Accra.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
We now take you to the Central Sahel region, where the foreign ministers of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger will visit Moscow this week as the Sahel nations and Russia seek to strengthen ties. The three African countries' foreign ministers said in a joint statement on Tuesday. The trio run by juntas that have taken power in coups in recent years have formed an alliance known as the Confederation of Sahelan States. The grouping kicked out French and other Western forces and turned towards Russia for military support. The statement said their foreign ministers will visit Moscow on April 3 and the 4th and hold meetings with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at his invitation. It referred to this week's visit as the first session of AES-Russia consultations. The three countries' armies are fighting a jihadist insurgency that has spread across the region of the Southern Sahara since it first took root in Mali 13 years ago. Away from Mali, let's now travel to Benin, where the National Autonomous Electoral Commission of Benin is conducting a seminar focused on strategic and operational planning for electoral activities in preparation for the 2026 general elections. This seminar began on Tuesday, April 1, in Bohikon, a city in southern Benin, and will run until Friday, April 4. The meeting includes all senior staff as well as executives from partner organizations. Ibrahim Parker has the details of this report filed by Alzi Adam Sule in Cotonou.
According to the National Autonomous Electoral Commission President Sakalafia, the meeting will help identify and analyze potential challenges faced by the organizers of the 2026 general elections. This preparation will enable them to anticipate issues and respond swiftly. Lafia said during the meeting, participants will discuss all activities included in the electoral timetable, which will be detailed in official documents. The monitoring and evaluation of the electoral process will also be addressed. The electoral timetable serves as a crucial tool for organizing various stages of the election process, allowing for the identification and planning of tasks necessary to conduct the elections within legal deadlines. The president of the National Autonomous Electoral Commission of Benin emphasized that this meeting is designed to equip commission members with the skills needed to foresee difficulties ensure a shared understanding of the planning documents, and maintain vigorous monitoring of the electoral process. He reassured the public that the 2026 general elections will be conducted without any irregularities.
That's Ibrahim Parker providing details of Adzi Adam Sulit's report from Cotonou. Now in Niger, the head of the junta, General Abdurrahman Chiani, has ordered the release of 49 former soldiers. This decision comes after the National Assembly of February 15, 2025, signaling or desired for peace. These releases aim to turn a sensitive page in the transitional and promote national reconciliation. Recalled on February 15, 2025, Niamey hosted a national conference with the goal to define a new trajectory for Niger. You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Senegalese lawmakers debate interpretation of amnesty law, while CSOs call for inclusive consultation. Ghana's President Mahama assents to bills aimed at abolishing e-levy, betting tax, among others. Guinean military leader Doumbouya sets September 21, 2025 as the date for a constitutional referendum. Still ahead in the news, Liberia's National Elections Commission officially declared campaign open for Nimba County by-election. We also have guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Many thanks for being there. Just before we bring you electoral matters, let's conclude with some parliamentary processes where the Togolese National Assembly opened its first ordinary session of the year on Tuesday ahead of the imminent election of the President of the Republic and the appointment of the President of the Council, two major steps in the implementation of the new constitution. Francis Boniface has the details.
The proceedings commenced with an official ceremony in accordance with Article 12 of the May 6, 2024 Constitution. Scheduled to last for 3 months, the session will enable members of Parliament to review organic laws and elect representatives to the institutions of the Republic, as well as independent administrative authorities accountable to the National Assembly. Additionally, members of Parliament will participate in 4 major anti-parliamentary meetings. This first ordinary session of the year takes place in a unique political context characterized by the effective establishment of the parliamentary system. Kojo Sevon Tepe Adeje serves as the President of the National Assembly.
En ce moment charnière de notre histoire constitutionnelle.
At this pivotal moment in our constitutional history, it is our duty to demonstrate unwavering determination and total commitment to the responsibilities entrusted to us. The upcoming appointment of the President of the Council, a foundational step in this new constitutional era, requires us to engage in rigorous analysis, sincere dialogue, and a shared vision for the future of our nation. Dear colleagues, history will judge us by our actions in these decisive moments. Let us therefore rise to the expectations of our fellow citizens who place their hope in us for a better future.
Leur espoir d'un avenir meilleur.
Meanwhile,
it is important to note that the deputies convened from March 4 to March 28 for an extraordinary session called at the request of President Faure Gnassingbé. This session resulted in the adoption of 7 bills and a proposed resolution.
Francis Boniface with that report, fighting by WADR's correspondent Sylvie Ouedraogo in Lomé. The Liberian National Elections Commission has officially announced the start of political campaign activities for the senatorial by-election in Nimba County. This by-election is scheduled for Tuesday, April 22, 2025, following the death of Senator Prince Johnson on November 29, 2024, after a prolonged illness. Here is an excerpt of David Brown Lassanan, chairperson of Liberia's Electoral Commission.
The National Elections Commission is pleased to report that 7 candidates have been qualified to contest in the 2025 Nimba County senatorial by-election. The candidates are Tobo T1K Fangalo, Independent; B. Mac Blewon, Citizens Movement for Change; Ide Lianu Gonglo Wed, Independent candidate; George Parkinson Gombu, African Democratic Movement; Samuel Gongwe Koga, Movement for Democracy and Reconstruction; Richard Martinoke Tingwe, Vision for Liberia Transformation; and Garrison Dode Yelu Jr., Independent candidate. Female candidates in this by-election, 1 person. Male candidates are 6. Independent candidates, 3. Political parties, coalition, alliance candidates, 4. Total number of candidates, 7 persons will be vying for the lone seats in this by-election in Nimba County. Fellow Liberians, I, Deviator Brown Lansana, chairperson of the National Elections Commission of Liberia, from the beautiful city of Tapita, Nimba County, do hereby officially declare political campaign open in the senatorial by-election Nimba County to 19 April 2025 at midnight. I wish to call on all candidates and their supporters to go about their campaign activities in a peaceful manner.
Deviator Brown Lassanan is the chairperson of Liberia's Electoral Commission.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, in furtherance of the conversation on Senegal's controversial amnesty law, which is being deliberated by lawmakers, CSOs in the country are calling for inclusive consultations. Let's join governance expert Dr. Ibrahim Khan for more analysis about this.
As you know, Macky Sall, before leaving power, the parliament adopted an amnesty law, which at that time was criticized by many Senegalese as a way of giving amnesty to those who have committed the most serious crime in the Senegalese political history. Not only the army, but also people were killed in the car, in the bus, and there was a lot of crime committed. Now, the current president and his prime minister promised to cancel the amnesty law when they come to power. He reiterated his desire to cancel the amnesty law in December during his speech to the nation. But up to now, that cancellation has not yet happened. But more importantly, one member of his party is now proposing to the parliament tomorrow to discuss a kind of bill that will change the content of the amnesty law, that will, according to them, interpret some provision of the amnesty law, but according to us, it's just a new legislation. Why it is a new legislation? Because it's a legislation that makes discrimination among those who committed crime. You know, when you put in a bill that only those who have been, those who committed crimes because they were fighting for civil liberties or democratic rights, only those people can now seek redress from the state. But the other can be amnestied, but the other people cannot be. It's clear that you are targeting a category of people who have committed crime, like a policeman.
Right. Again, you said that you're calling for justice to be served for perpetrators irrespective of their current state and governance. We want to find out who are some of these identified suspects of the human rights violations and atrocities that occurred during that period that are in governance now, that in one way, as in your own opinion, the amnesty law or bill that they will seek to rectify seems to be favoring them.
Well, you know, the biggest problem is this. How can you start reparation if you don't know what happened? If you don't know who did what, who killed who, why, how, and when? Nobody knows. what happened between February 2021 to February 2024. Nobody knows. The first thing to be done is to do that kind of inquiry. Independent, impartial, and we know who has done what. That is the most important one. Now, the second one, based on that kind of inquiry, then the prosecutor has all the elements that will allow him to indict, to take to court, to do everything, and also to call for other type mechanism that exists in our system. You know, we have many systems in our disposal that will help the society to really make sure that all those who suffered during that period, you know, will have a way to sort out their problem. But if that inquiry is not done, there is no possibility to continue to deal with this issue.
Dr. Ibrahim Khan is an AU governance expert. Up next is Sankule Janko with the latest sports news.
Hello there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Côte d'Ivoire began their CAF on the 17th Africa Cup of Nations campaign with an intense statement after thrashing the Central African Republic 6-1 on Tuesday evening. Youngster Alino Haidara inspired his team to the resounding victory, scoring 4 of the 6 goals Côte d'Ivoire scored. The former champions, who are looking at following in the footsteps of their senior elephants, are in a good place to secure qualification. The commanding victory sees Côte d'Ivoire top of Group D with 3 points and 5 goals. Meanwhile, Mali made a strong start to their CAF on the 17th Africa Cup of Nations campaign with a hard 4-2-1 victory over Angola on Tuesday at the Stade Municipal de Berachid. Goals from Jukura Bomba and Songalo Koulibaly handed the Malians all 3 points in their opening Group D clash. The victory takes Mali to second in Group D behind leaders Côte d'Ivoire. Elsewhere, Tunisia made a flying start to their campaign thanks to a 3-0 win over Somalia on Tuesday in Al Jadida. The win puts Tunisia top of Group C on goal difference ahead of Senegal, who egged neighbors Gambia earlier in the day. Looking ahead in Thursday's fixtures, Cameroon will hope to bounce back from their 2-1 defeat to Burkina Faso in their opening campaign when they take on South Africa. Tanzania will entertain Uganda as both teams seek their first point of the campaign following defeats to Morocco and Zambia respectively. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mam Kodu Fai and Umun Danyogo for the technical support. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook at WADR English Service. I am Augustine Kali. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.